Hey, what's up you guys? You're watching Team APS, and in today's video, I'm going to share my 10 least favorite, most annoying Yu-Gi-Oh decks. I realize that I've never actually shared this formally in a video. I mean, I've talked about it in other videos with other people, but I've never really given my personal list. These are in no particular order because I kind of just hate them all, so let's hop right in. First up's Qliphorts. I really hate this deck. I've always hated this deck. And it's kind of sad because it's for different reasons at different points of time. Like at first I just kind of hated it because annoying meta deck that got too much advantage, you know, Scout's annoying and they recur and you know you couldn't chain to like stealth. Just the typical sort of reasons why you might dislike Qliphorts. Later though, it became Towers Turbo, which is really another kind of annoying thing. This deck became that, and everybody knows that Towers is probably one of the most annoying, if not the most annoying boss monsters of all time, and that's really saying something. I mean, a card that, I know, don't get me wrong, that people will say, oh, Diamond Crab King can get rid of it or whatever, but not all decks have access to that, and you know, it's not always an easy out. So I hated it for Towers at one point. And now most recently, I hate it because it is like kind of the most annoying Floodgate deck currently in the game. Card Demise made this deck a real nightmare to face, and you know, the fact that they're just teching in stuff like Necro Valley and Skill Drain and just anti-spell, you're just running like floodgates where the point of the deck becomes less of a I'm trying to do any particular thing and more of a I just hate you and I don't want you doing anything. In the meantime, we'll, you know, search a Qliphort card or two, pendulum summon a little bit, just swing over you with like stun cards, but it's definitely bad. I mean, maybe the real problem is like Card Demise and stuff, but I still really hate Qliphorts. Next is actually Noble Knights. It's low on the list, like I don't hate it as much these days, but during their prime, if you could call it that, I really hated this deck because it can sometimes feel less like, you know, you're playing against them and more like they're just finding 5 equipped spells or whatever to equip to the one monster, making it basically invincible, and you just have to sit there wasting time finding a way around the one monster. So, you know, it can't be destroyed, it can't be targeted, it's got 1 billion attack points. All the spells, or well, you know, like half of them, re-equip when they die, and so it can just get to the point where like, what am I supposed to do? And don't get me wrong, I know there are outs, you know, Grand Mole actually, Creature Swap, and like DD Warrior Lady, kind of basic non-targeting stuff comes to mind, but the fact of the matter is not every deck really wants to run those cards, not every deck has a built-in out. So it could get really annoying facing Noble Knights, especially when they got to go off nice and early, that was a real problem. And you know, they still lose to sort of like Bricky Hands, Naturia Beasts, those sort of things, but I still didn't like them. I like them more now though. Next is Dark World. Not gonna spend a lot of time on this one. I don't think anybody likes Dark World, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I think there are people who enjoy playing it, but even the people who enjoy playing it know that people hate it. And a lot of them play it because people hate it. So Dark World, its spot is kind of undisputed, like it's gonna pretty much be in any given person's like top 10 most hated decks list. I'd like to think so at least. Next is Satellar Knights. Not a big fan of these guys. They just, when in their prime, they really triggered me. Obviously, they're not like super frequent right now, but it was literally, you know, it was Triver, really, more than anything. Triver is so annoying, but it's also just how the Satellar Knights worked, where each one just kind of pluses, like Altair and Deneb. And it's just like, you know, if a card like Stratos has to be banned, then why does a deck get like 3 Denebs and like an Altair that can just say, hi, I'm back, you know, search again, and then, you know, outside of the fact that like Deltaros and Altair had annoying effects, they recurred when they died. So whenever they left, it was just like, Altair comes back, or Vega comes back and gets Altair, and then Altair gets Deneb, and Deneb searches, and then, oh look, we have 3 Satellar Knights again. Great. But yeah, more than anything, it was definitely Triver or Triver, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that thing was so annoying because it bounced all of your stuff, and so if you were playing a deck that wasn't really fast and could like quickly get in and like, you know, pressure them, you were basically going to lose. If you had to play like a slow-paced deck, your stuff was just going to continually get bounced. And in addition to that, they're bouncing Call of the Haunted, Fiendish Chains, you know, those types of cards, and then don't get me started on Stellar Nova Alpha. So yeah, like I said, thankfully this deck is not as prevalent now, like Rhoda's at 1, and it's just been a bit power crept, but at its time, you know, at its peak or whatever, I really hated this deck too. Next is Ritual Beasts. Another one that's kind of like Satellar Knights, where I hated it in its prime, don't hate it quite as much now, but still a very annoying deck. Mainly the looping, the fact that, you know, a turn could go for so long, and, you know, ultimately they were only maybe going like +1 or 2 at the end of it, but it was just really annoying, you know. for a deck to be able to go do this stuff over and over and over and over, and like the fact that they could unfuse, like, you know, as part of a chain. I still remember, like, you know, Ulti Cannahawk. God, thank goodness that card's limited. You know, there's the fact that, you know, you could use both, like, one effect and then chain its second effect to its first effect and get searches and reset stuff. And then there was, not Steeds, but Ritual Beast Ambush. The one that they would just activate in the end phase after, you know, all the jank had happened. You just activate Ambush in the end phase, and it's just like, well, your end phase, of course, not theirs. And, you know, just get everything back. And it was also probably, funny enough, one of the decks with the most potential to accidentally cheat, because, you know, you can only special summon like each of them once per turn, but it was so hard oftentimes to keep up with that. So, you know, because they were all getting banished and sent to the grave and back to the field, and, you know, getting summoned from the extra deck and back again, and it was like really crazy. So yeah, Ritual Beast, they took way too much time. It was a really annoying deck for me personally. Next is Ghost Tricks. I don't hate this deck, more like it's just kind of a small annoyance to me. Whenever you play Ghost Tricks, this is kind of more of a like when I played online and you face the random Ghost Trick player, they rarely ever actually beat you. It just felt more kind of like they were wasting your time. I don't know if anybody else ever gets that impression, because it's just a bunch of monsters that, you know, they flip your monsters face down and they just get set face down, and like they have 3 or 4 different Battle Fader-esque monsters that summon themselves in the battle phase and like negate attacks and just float. And it's just like, they don't really have high stats, they don't really deal a lot of damage or like even destroy much of your stuff. It's just kind of like they're just trolling you. I don't know, I mean, like, it's just, you're just having to take several turns to finally get rid of all of the stuff. And I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, that deck's got loads of issues. It's not like a hard deck to beat, like I said. It's just a very trolly, annoying deck, and so for that reason, it made this list. Not super high up on the list. Like I said, these aren't in any order. They were just really trolly. Next up's Yosenju, a deck that it's kind of higher up on the list. So Yosenju, I mean, like, it's not the worst thing in the world. It's just another kind of annoying deck, but it's an annoying deck that actually can kill you, like, too. So, you know, you've got these monsters that get kind of annoying little plussy, pestering effects, like bouncing your monsters, and being able to swing directly, stuff like that. But then they leave the field and go back to the hand during the end phase, and you think, oh, well, that means that the player is vulnerable because they don't have any monsters in the field. But then you remember that they've got, you know, annoying floodgates, and so that's sort of keeping you back. And if you're, like I said, if you're playing an OTK deck or just something really fast, Yosenju is rarely ever a threat. But like with, you know, certain other decks like, say, Satellar Knights, the fact of the matter is every turn they're gonna do this, and if your deck can't keep up, you know, like if you're playing something slower, something older, then your card's just gonna continue to get bounced, you're gonna keep taking more damage. And, you know, they still had stuff like Yosenju's secret move and the scales that like protected them. Don't remember what it's called exactly. So yeah, Yosenju, just a really annoying deck to face. And kind of another annoying part was, like, in its prime, a lot of people played it because it was among the cheaper but still competitive decks, so you would run into it a lot online and in real life. And, you know, so yeah, those slower, kind of just annoying, repetitive stun decks, they trigger me. Next one's Evil Swarms. In its prime, hated this deck too. The thing about Evil Swarms was that, you know, they, as an archetype, they weren't even like an archetype in my eyes. If you read their effects, they don't do anything to really support each other. They're just about summoning some monsters and getting Ophion out really fast and sitting on it. So you just get out Ophion, you use its effect, you search, you know, Pandemic, and then there's like the trap or whatever, and you just sit and protect it. Like, it's big, so your opponent's not gonna get over it without summoning a high level monster, but it doesn't allow that. So, you know, you just sit on Ophion and you are protected from like Dark Hole and other things like that. You just run a lot of back row, and you're just chilling there, and it's just like, it's really hard to, you know, see much, I guess, skill, as people would say, in playing that deck, because it just sits and summons Ophion, and that's that. And like, if you're playing a deck that needs to summon high level monsters, oftentimes you're just kind of screwed, and, you know, there's not a whole lot you can do. You can't run over it, you can't use spells and traps to get rid of it. So, you know, unless you've got the handful of kind of niche monsters like Grand Mole or something, you're pretty much out of luck. And I mean, even then, they've got loads of back row and floodgates, so they're further ensuring that you can't do anything. And the worst part is, you know, when they are able to just summon another Ophion after you kill the first with something like Hirkion was what it was called. So, and, you know, honorable mention, I guess, since I'm here, is Constellars, but I didn't hate them as much as Evil Swarms. They didn't make this list, so yeah. No, I hated Evil Swarms. Next deck is Psyframes. You know, I've gotten a great Cyframe deck profile when they first came out. Nico Smith, a very viewed video on my channel, and a really great deck profile, and he did a great job. God forbid the deck itself is the worst thing in the world. You know, Cyframes really, Konami never fails to make, you know, annoying archetypes. I think that's their goal, is always kind of make some anti-meta one. We've got, you know, Amorphages now, I guess, the most recent, but Jesus, Cyframes, I mean, you know, I tell you, it's so strange, a deck based on not doing anything and just waiting for your opponent to do something, and then just stopping that, and then maybe making a play, but that's it. So like, you know, the fact that it's almost like it's taunting you, you know, it's saying like, oh, you know, I got an empty field, you know, go on ahead, make your plays, do what you want, and then you try to do anything against them, you know, negate, and then summon driver, and blah blah blah, and then, you know, it wouldn't be that bad, but then you've got like that annoying trap and the field spell and like Omega, which is getting rid of cards in your hand and recycling their stuff and swinging at you each turn, and it's running away so you can't even get rid of it. And it's just like, come on, you know, Cyframes, of all the annoying anti-meta decks, it's probably the most, you know, backwards to what I think Yu-Gi-Oh cards should be. You're not doing anything. You're waiting for your opponent to do something so you can react to it. It's almost like, I hate it so much, it's almost a deck I would play, and that's really weird. But yeah, I don't like Cyframes. Definitely the weirdest, most kind of just reverse engineered deck ever, and I see why, and the hate is warranted, so yeah. And the last deck on this list, maybe the worst, I don't know, is Darklaw Turbo. God, this deck. To me, you know, like many of the decks on this list, it's one of those decks that kind of focuses on one, over-centralizes even, on one play that just stops the opponent from doing anything. Darklaw is the most annoying card, and it, you know, whenever someone just starts their turn, Goblinberg, Shadow Mist, search, set 3, go, your turn, standby phase, whoosh. You know, it's like, and maybe more than that is the fact that I'm actually a former hero player, as I've said before, so, you know, to me, it's also a bit insulting because it doesn't really feel like heroes anymore. It becomes Darklaw Turbo. You know, not even Miracle Fusion is a part of the equation anymore. It really isn't even fusions. You're not even using 2 monsters. You're just mass changing that Shadow Mist or whatever else, and, you know, that's it. And once Darklaw's in the field, some decks just have to scoop. Like, if they don't have immediate answer, they have to scoop. And, you know, this is ignoring the fact that there are back row behind it, you know, like Fiendish and Bottomless and Lances and, you know, whatever else, some Floodgate or two. It's just the fact that, you know, it really isn't heroes, and it really isn't fun, and Darklaw, you know, just, you can't, not only is everything banished, like, you, even if you're trying to mount a comeback, you can't even, like, really safely search cards, because, you know, then you're gonna have something get banished from your hand, and it's just like, really, Konami just had to add that extra bit of insult to injury. So yeah, Dark Mist and Shadow Law, those centralized decks, you know, that's the type of stuff that makes me just wish Stratos came back, just so we could see some other variant of heroes. Because Darklaw Turbo, ugh. Anyway, that's the video. Those are my 10 least favorite decks. Hope I didn't go on too long, but in the comments, share what your least favorite decks are. You don't have to necessarily list 10, but just however many, and we can talk about it. It should be fun. Hope you guys liked the video, and you can subscribe for, you know, more Yu-Gi-Oh content. I make videos Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and yeah, so that's gonna be it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.